What a wonderful way to begin the day. Thank you, Paula. Welcome, everyone, to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende. Bienvenidos todos al servicio dominical de los Unitarios Universalistas de San Miguel de Allende. We are located on the lands of the Chichimeca, Otomi, and Nahua peoples and are making community by Zoom across Mexico, Canada, and the USA. Nos encontramos en los pueblos de tierra Chichimeca, Otomi, y Nahua. Hacemos comunidad a través de Zoom en todo Mexico, Estados Unidos, y Canadá. We are glad to be here together today again after a month. Estamos contentos de estar aquí juntos hoy. This is a place where we can bring our whole selves and be accepted as we are with love and friendship. Este es un lugar donde podemos traer todo nuestro ser y ser aceptados tal como somos, con amor y amistad. My name is Ann Kuffner, and I will be your service leader today. Mi nombre es Ana Kuffner, y seré la líder de servicio hoy. Before we move into worship time, we would like to share a few announcements. Actually, there aren't that many. Antes de pasar a nuestro tiempo de adoración, nos gustaría compartir algunos anuncios. The first is we don't have the air conditioning on. It's sort of cool. Are people okay with that, or do you need the air conditioning? How many people? Just only one? Oh, you're good. Okay, we're going to save some energy today. We're good. We don't need the AC. Okay, we're really happy to see everyone again, and tried to get that word out. Some people were confused, but we're very happy to see everyone in person. If we have any visitors here today, would you please stand so that we can see who you are and personally greet you and ask where you are from after the service. Do we have any visitors? Oh, wow, great. Wonderful. Welcome. Welcome. For those on Zoom, if you are visiting, please type in your name and how you heard of us in the chat box so we can greet you personally later. After the service, those on Zoom are invited to stay connected and visit with others in the main room for discussion. We invite those of you who are here with us at the Aldea to join us for coffee and cookies. Feel free to take your coffee later on and check out the welcome table, for those of you who are new, where you will find lots of information about our fellowship. You're welcome to come to our Thursday lunch and games event here in San Miguel and to Reverend Tom's coffee hour on Zoom. You can check the order of service, your pamphlet, for the details. And do not hesitate to bring your friends. We do record our in-person Sunday services. Just go to our website, UUFSMA.org, and click on Services at the top, then Previous Services. And while on the website, please check out various events sponsored by the fellowship, as well as information on how to become a member. Now we will shift into the service with the opening words and chalice lighting. I would like to share a quote that is both thought-provoking and charming from Neil deGrasse Tyson as we light the chalice. Neil eloquently stated, "We are stardust brought to life, then empowered by the universe to figure itself out, and we have only just begun." Now let's join our voices together in song. Hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and to remain so for the covenant. Words will appear on the screen. to join together in reciting this fellowship's unique covenant. This is our promise that we aspire to of how to be in relation to each other and the larger world. We will read it together, first in English, and then with Hillary leading it in Spanish. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values will benefit lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant.
Thank you. Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Okay, you can sit down. Now we enter a sacred time in our service, a time when members and friends share with our community significant joys, sorrows, and concerns that they are experiencing. If you would like to share a future joy, sorrow, or concern next time, feel free to send an email to Reverend Rosiello before next weekend. If you are on Zoom today, you can type it into the chat box. We have quite a few today, since it's been a month or so. The first joy is that we are happy to all be together again for traditional in-person Sunday services. To see one another face to face. Okay, this morning we have an important joy that we can all celebrate. Last fall, our fellowship's Social Justice Foundation inherited property here in San Miguel. The sale of the property has just closed, and the foundation, Paula, we have a few of the responsible people here that we can thank. The foundation is putting all the funds into the endowment for our social justice work. It is still critically important to grow our contributions from individuals within and beyond this congregation, as well as UU congregational partnerships in the USA and Canada for the fellowship. That's a separate pot. But now we can all be confident that our cherished commitment to social justice will continue beyond this generation to benefit thousands of children, women, and families with serious needs. We offer a special expression of joy for our own UU members, Glenn Roten and Kyung Chong of CDR Realtors. They worked passionately to bring this sale to its close. Congratulations to our Social Justice Foundation team for achieving this important milestone for our UU Fellowship and San Miguel de Allende. Okay, we offer a candle of support for Reverend Rosiello, who recently took a tumble and broke his wrist and his arm. He will not need surgery after all, thank goodness, as his arm and wrist are healing, but he will now have to delay his hip surgery. We send him our support for his broken bones healing quickly and that his hip surgery goes well. We light a candle for Margot Johnson, who recently had treatment in Texas for her broken ankle. She then had an infection, but we are joyful that she will be returning here to San Miguel very soon. We light a candle in support of Arlene Lawrence as she continues doing physical therapy at home after hip replacement. We light a candle of concern for Kathleen Bennett as she needed to make an emergency medical trip to Denver on April 22nd to treat an aggressive infection and blood clot in her leg. She had surgery on April 29th and has been in a skilled nursing facility, since then receiving antibiotics regularly. Kathleen is hoping to be released this weekend so she can stay at her son's home and receive home health care there. And then once her infection's gone, she's going to have another knee replacement. So she needs a lot of positive energy sent her way. She hopes to return here in August. We wish her well and a speedy recovery from her infection. Another candle of concern we're lighting for Maxine Arnold. She fell and broke her leg recently. She had surgery and is recovering at Sophie Cares. She would appreciate phone calls and visits. Okay, this is a last minute one. Okay, we light a candle of support and concern. For a number of weeks, Liz Stone has been suffering with extreme back pain. Following tests to make certain her heart could withstand surgery, the green light was given yesterday, and the procedure takes place at noon today in Capricho on a Sunday. She hopes to be home this evening, so support to her. Wow, a lot of broken bones and things. Okay, I'm going to shift gears, and I am going to personally share a joy. Mike and I will soon be taking a very special vacation tour in Croatia, the country my family emigrated from. Our tour guide recently called me to share that she had tracked down a second cousin whom I never knew existed from my maternal grandmother's side of the family. He has agreed to meet me when we visit the town of Ravna Gora, where my father's parents grew up before emigrating to the United States. We know very little about my father's side of the family, so I'm delighted that I might get to meet this cousin in my grandparents' hometown in Croatia. Okay, we light a candle of concern and sorrow. Wait, let's see if there's any here. None? Okay. We light a candle of concern and sorrow for the suffering of the people of Ukraine as the war with Russia continues unabated with no acceptable resolution in sight. We light a candle of concern and sorrow in hopes for an end to the terrible suffering resulting from the conflict in the Middle East. We light a candle of concern for all those being unfairly treated and harmed by the current U.S. administration's flagrant disregard of the Constitution and the legal rights of immigrants and its citizens. And finally, we light a candle for all of the joys, sorrows, and concerns that remain unspoken. Now you can come forward to silently light a candle of joy or concern. This service will focus on the personal spiritual journeys of two UUFSMA members, Tom Murlowski and myself. Before Tom and I speak, I'd like to share a selection of thought-provoking quotes from famous scientists, psychologists, and mystics describing their perceptions of the spiritual journey to provide a broader perspective on this topic. From the Bhagavad Gita, spirituality is the journey of the self, through the self, to the self. From Carl Jung, the spiritual journey is not a career or a success story. It is a series of small humiliations of the false self that become more and more profound. From Joseph Campbell, to live in a sacred space is to live in a symbolic environment where spiritual life is possible, where everything around you speaks of the exaltation of the spirit. This is a place where you can simply experience and bring forth what you are and what you might be. This is a place of creative incubation. At first, you might find that nothing happens there, but if you have a sacred place and use it, something eventually will happen. Your sacred space is where you find yourself again and again. From Albert Einstein, the further the spiritual evolution of mankind advances, the more certain it seems to me that the path to genuine religiosity does not lie through the fear of life and the fear of death and blind faith, but through striving after rational knowledge. Everyone who is seriously involved in the pursuit of science becomes convinced that a spirit is manifest in the laws of the universe, a spirit vastly superior to that of man, and one in the face of which we with our modest powers must feel humble. From Fritjof Capra, a physicist who wrote The Tao of Physics, the mystic and the physicist arrive at the same conclusion, one starting from the inner realm, the other from the outer realm. The harmony between their views confirms the ancient Indian wisdom that Brahman, the ultimate reality without, is identical to Atman, the reality within. And finally, from Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Church of Religious Science, I am guided by the same intelligence, inspired by the same imagination that scatters the moonbeams across the waves and holds the forces of nature in its grasp. Each member of this fellowship has followed a unique path that brought them here. For many, the journey has been a deeply personal and spiritual one. What makes our community so rich is precisely this diversity of experience and beliefs. The strength of the UU religious tradition lies in our openness to exploring what is meaningful and true for us, what we believe or don't believe about life, the universe, spirit, and God. Our common bond is that we accept and practice the principles fundamental to the Unitarian Universalist faith. These varied journeys often lead to surprising, enlightening, and at times amusing reflections. Every year we dedicate a few services to inviting willing members to share the paths that led them to Unitarian Universalism and our fellowship. Today, Tom Murlowski and I will describe our personal journeys and what led each of us to find our spiritual home here in this fellowship. Today's talk are inspired by the following two UU principles. The third principle, which is acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. The fourth principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Many of you attended a similar service on March 30th of this year entitled Life Journeys, Faith Journeys, What Do We Believe and How Should We Live? During that service, Paola Turando and Susan McDonald shared their personal faith journeys. As UUs, we are a diverse group of individuals coming from different faith traditions, geographies, and cultural backgrounds. We are each seeking our own truth, whatever that may be. Each of our personal journeys is valid and relevant. We arrive in this magical town of San Miguel de Allende and this fellowship, having followed our unique path with stories worth sharing. I'm not going to go into our bios because we're both talking about ourselves in quite a bit of detail. So now I will start my personal journey. My upbringing was as a Catholic. My parents were first-generation Croatian Americans. They scrimped and saved to pay for my tuition to attend Catholic schools for 12 years. Croatians, like Mexicans, are devout Catholics. But I was fairly young when I first questioned some of the Catholic principles we were taught in school. My best friend, Karen, who lived down the street from us, was raised a Lutheran. During religion classes, we were taught that anyone who died before being baptized would go to limbo and would never see God. So if my dear friend was hit by a car, she'd go straight to limbo forever. I wondered, how can an all-knowing, all-loving God punish an innocent child like that for not being baptized? It was not her fault. She didn't have a choice. Growing up Catholic came with a lot of guilt and fear, right? And there are a few of you here that understand that. If I died before confessing my recent sins, I could be sent to purgatory, or worse, to a fiery hell. What a vivid image for a young, impressionable mind. It took me years to get past that fear and the guilt instilled in me during those years of indoctrination in Catholic elementary school. After grade school, I transferred to an all-girl Catholic high school run by the Dominican nuns. Upon reflection, that was mostly a positive experience, since the Dominican order is intellectual and open-minded. We studied diverse philosophies in high school, such as those of Immanuel Kant and Teilhard de Chardin. Our teachers encouraged us to keep an open and curious mind. The golden rule was instilled in us. We were taught to treat others as equals and to help the poor and the disenfranchised. That positive part of my religious upbringing carried over into my long-term approach for life. I developed a strong sense of conscience and a sincere intent to treat others well and as equals as a result of my Catholic education in high school. Fast forwarding to the 1970s, I had totally rejected Catholicism. After a year at Monteith Experimental College and Wayne State University in Detroit, I moved to San Francisco with a few friends at the tender age of 19. I was determined to break away from my Catholic upbringing and become an independent thinker. During my first few years in San Francisco, you could say I was a hippie, because it was the 70s after all. I referred to myself as an atheist, partly because I'd always been an advocate of science and logic. Eventually, I obtained a degree in chemical engineering, and a few years later, I received a master's in environmental engineering. Over the years, I eventually came to believe that science and spirituality complement and reinforce one another. While preparing this talk, I realized that my life and spiritual path was significantly influenced by the philosophy, psychology, metaphysics, and mysticism books that I voraciously read during my 20s and 30s. The book that most profoundly impacted me was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I reread it every couple of years. Frankl was a psychologist who survived in the Nazi camps, while most others around him perished, including his parents and his wife. He developed logotherapy based on his experiences in the camps. He came to realize that although the Nazis could deprive him of everything, they could not control how he responded to his situation. Here are two of his most relevant quotes that have impacted me. "Forces beyond your control can take away everything you possess except one thing, your freedom to choose how you will respond to the situation." And number two, man does not simply exist, but always decides what his existence will be, what he will become the next moment. By the same token, every human being has the freedom to change at any instant. Frankl chose how he responded to the Nazis' mistreatment of him, but he believed that he survived because he found meaning from his experiences in the Nazi camps, as painful as they were. He later applied what he had learned to counsel others, teaching that it's critical that we each find meaning in our lives. From that point on, I applied Frankl's philosophy to my own approach to life, especially during challenging periods. This search for meaning in life led me to obtain a master's degree in environmental engineering, so that I could work in the environmental field and help to clean up chemical contamination versus work as a chemical engineer and create chemical contamination. For me, that was much more gratifying than working for the chemical and oil companies. I've always asked myself during difficult transition periods, what can I learn from this experience, and how can I resolve this situation while still maintaining my core ethics and morality? For a few years, I attended Sunday meditation services at the Zen Center in Marin County, California, and read a series of books on Buddhist and Zen philosophy and meditation. I even attended a weekend Zen meditation retreat in Big Sur. In all honesty, meditation has always been a struggle for me. Sitting in silence never led me to enlightenment. I'm too, hyper. I feel more alive and enlightened when I'm dancing. Mike can relate to that. At one point, I delved into the teachings of Carl Jung, intrigued by his concept of the collective unconscious. After reading Edgar Cayce's books, it seemed that Cayce's clairvoyant visions complemented Jung's concept of the collective unconscious. The concept of a universal energy field that connects all of us in the form of a higher intelligence made sense to me then, and it still does today. I came to believe that we are all connected through such an energy field, or ether, whatever you prefer to call it. I think of this universal energy field as the universal spirit. Years later, I read another compelling book, The Tao of Physics, by physicist Fritjof Capra. In this book, Capra integrates the mathematical worldview of modern physics with the mystical visions of Buddha and Krishna. He describes the principles of quantum physics as parallel to the mystical visions of Buddha and Krishna. For me, Capra's descriptions further supported the concept of a collective energy field that connects us all. Eventually, I was exposed to the science of mind teachings while reading the book Heal Your Body by Louise Hayes. In her book, she explains how our internal thought patterns can make us more vulnerable to specific health afflictions. For each affliction listed in her book, she suggested a healing affirmation. That was my first introduction to the concept and power of affirmations as taught in the science of mind. The related faith organization founded by Ernest Holmes is the Church of Religious Science. Another core science of mind teaching is that each of us are responsible for our own thoughts, and that those thoughts create our reality and destiny. For me, the science of mind teachings aligned with and complemented those of Viktor Frankl. Mike and I joined the Religious Science Church near our home in the Oakland Hills of the San Francisco Bay Area, and we regularly attended their services. I still practice their core principles. The Science of Mind monthly magazine, Guide for Spiritual Living, sits on my bedstand. I begin every day with their daily guide, thought for the day, and the associated affirmation. I also regularly practice Thanksgiving, which is another core principle they teach. When we moved to San Miguel 7 years ago, I hoped to find a spiritual community similar to the Church of Religious Science. After hearing about the UUFSMA, we began attending services here. Initially, it was a way to meet people of like mind. I loved the music of the services and the fact that some services were lay-led. Over time, we realized that a number of people we really liked and respected are active members here. We first got to know Danny Newspiel and Kathy Canepa at Arthur Murray dance events. Right? I became friends with Joan Wolfe because we attended the same yoga classes together. Once I learned that they were all active in the fellowship, I was more inclined to dig deeper into the UU faith. I don't believe in many coincidences. I've learned from past experiences to trust my intuition. It definitely seemed that Universal Spirit was guiding me towards this fellowship. As Mike and I attended more services, we grew to appreciate Reverend Rosiello's sermons, the care team's commitment to supporting fellowship members in need, and the fellowship's support of local NGOs. Every time the covenant was read at a service, it resonated with me, especially the part that states, we respect the interdependent web of life. As an environmental engineer, it touched me that our covenant incorporates a connection with nature and all beings on this earth. We stopped coming to services altogether during COVID. I just could not bear any more time on Zoom. But once in-person services restarted, I was anxious to return and to reconnect with people of like mind. That was when we pledged to become long-term members. I still knew nothing about the UU principles, though, but we felt comfortable at UUFSMA services and appreciated being a part of a supportive spiritual community. Not long after pledging, we joined a Vagabundos trip to Puebla. Joan Wolfe attended that trip with Ellie Goodwin. I already knew Joan well. She introduced me to Ellie. Joan is one of my favorite people. I don't think, is she here today? No, I don't see. Oh, okay. She's such a lovely person. She introduced me to Ellie. She had often talked about how much she loved being involved as a member of this fellowship. Joan's comments had made an impression on me, and after that trip, Ellie started twisting my arm, trying to convince me to volunteer. Many of you know how persuasive Ellie can be. I actually had already been looking for a way to volunteer my time in a meaningful way. I had contacted Camino de Agua, but they did not have a volunteer opportunity that fit for me at that time. Again, I believe that everything happens for a reason and that opportunities are presented to us in life. We just need to pay attention and recognize when the universal spirit is presenting us with a special opportunity for growth. Well, as a result of Ellie's persistence, I took over publicity for Sunday services and continued in that role for 2 years. That's when I finally learned the UU principles. It then became apparent to me that the UU principles aligned well with and supported my core beliefs and approach to life. The UU principles that most profoundly speak to me include the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, respect for the independent web of all existence of which we are a part. Never in my wildest imagination did I expect that in my 70s, I'd become a service leader and a board member of a Unitarian Universalist fellowship. But I'm so grateful to now be an active contributing member of this fellowship. I still have a lot to learn, but the UU faith is a comfortable fit for me. It not only allows me to grow, but encourages me to do so. I found my spiritual community here within this fellowship, and I'm eternally grateful that my personal spiritual path led me here.
Thank you, Paula. That was beautiful. Good morning. Can you hear me all right? My name is Tom Murlowski. I retired to San Miguel from Southern California last July, and I have been attending this congregation just about as long. I've been invited to say a few words on who I am and why I'm now a Unitarian Universalist, so here's my journey. I was born and raised in a middle-class family. Oh, this might be easier. I was born and raised in a middle-class family in Bloomington, Minnesota, a working-class suburb of Minneapolis. My family was casually Irish Catholic, as we dutifully went to church every Sunday and attended a couple of annual fundraising events, but didn't even really mention religion otherwise. I attended Catholic grade school, and at a very early age, I questioned the truth of Catholic Christian dogma due to some truly awful behavior from the nuns that were teachers at my school, and the logical inconsistencies of what was being taught. Nevertheless, for high school, I chose to go to a Catholic military academy, which somehow seemed like a good idea to my 14-year-old brain. And because the prestigious prep school offered a slew of advanced AP courses, which somehow triggered my intellect. However, because of the expensive tradition and our modest middle-class income, I stayed late on a regular basis to mop floors and otherwise do maintenance to work off part of my tuition. The cognitive dissonance of learning about Jesus' teachings while training for war, plus the growing awareness of class division between my working class upbringing and the entitled, mostly white, wealthy classmates who made up the bulk of our academy, had a profound effect on my worldview, but certainly not the one they intended. There, I got that out. In all fairness, I also received a top-notch education in the sciences, math, and such, and one teacher in particular had a profound influence on my lifelong love of science and objective thought. Thank you, Professor. A year after graduation, I lost my dad without warning to a rare form of leukemia. We knew he was sick, but didn't realize how serious it was until his heart just gave out one April morning. While my dad and I were not very close, and indeed often at loggerheads with each other, it was still, of course, a major trauma to suddenly not have him. I certainly inherited his skills and aptitude. He was the guy in the neighborhood who could fix anything, and that's what I've become. Later that year, I chose to avoid college and instead attended trade school, like my dad, resulting in a degree in electronics engineering. I spent the next few decades wandering around the country, working various jobs and attempting to find myself. I had some pretty wild adventures along the way. I'll tell you about them when you're older. And after settling down a bit, I eventually moved to Southern California, where both my brother and sister also ended up. In 1997, a woman friend of mine in San Diego was sent to prison on clearly dubious drug charges. My natural empathy switched to overdrive, and I vowed to help her any way I could. From 1997 to 2010, I became a professional activist with an organization in Washington State, educating people about America's disastrous war on drugs and all the racism, injustice, and massively overcrowded prisons it caused. Truly one of the great adventures of my life. One of the highlights of my entire life was shaking the hand of the great Senator John Lewis, a civil rights pioneer and ally of MLK, and the closest I'll ever come to shaking hands with a genuine superhero. Sadly, I was never able to directly help Susie other than provide her moral and financial support, and more indirectly to help soften the awful laws that put her behind bars. She has been released some years ago and has remarried, and I've kind of lost touch with her. In 2010, I returned to Southern California to help care for my mom as she descended into profound and eventually fatal dementia. I finally retired in July 2004 to San Miguel de Allende. My sister Kathy, who is a member of this congregation and will be here next week, played a large part in my decision to retire to Mexico, and an equally large part in getting me involved with Unitarian Universalism, both in San Diego and this congregation here in San Miguel. While I appreciated the UU community she belonged to in San Diego, I never resonated with them like I do with this crew. You're just a lovely bunch of humans. Among the many reasons I joined this UU fellowship was seeking a sense of community, a sense of wonder at the universe, a sense of service to my fellow humans, and finally, a sense of hope in an increasingly chaotic world. In my pursuit of the above, I recently volunteered to facilitate a second UU men's discussion group. We meet every other Friday at La Frontera Restaurant in San Antonio, and we're looking for participants, especially since a large part of the congregation has fled north for the summer. Contact me if you're interested. One side note, we've decided to put that group on hiatus till September or until enough people perk up that we could form a group. So right now we're not meeting weekly until I get some response telling me that they'd like to show up. My sense of spirituality is best informed by offerings from two of my favorite authors. Carl Sagan once said, "The cosmos is within us. We are made of star stuff. We are a way for the universe to know itself." And novelist and essayist Kurt Vonnegut Jr. once asked his pediatrician son Mark about the meaning of life. The younger Vonnegut said this, "Father, we are here to help each other get through this thing, whatever it is." What a fine principle to focus your life on. I am totally aligned with the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism, but the most magical to me is number 7, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. That's about as fine a definition of God as I've ever come across. I've come to realize that I've always had a resonance with the Unitarian Universalist philosophies of inclusion, compassion, and empathy, service to others, and acknowledging the wonders of existence while dispensing with rigid dogma. I just didn't have a name for it until recently. In closing, I would like to indulge myself and recite a poem. I wrote this some years ago. I think it perfectly encapsulates my sense of the divine, and I think reflects the humanist nature of UU philosophy. I hope you enjoy it. And let me take a quick sip first. I call this the realm of the gods. Once there was magic and laughter and love, and power from below and manna from above. Once there were dragons and villains and mages, and maidens fair and heroes bold, and wisdom of the ages. But we ate from the apple and we drank from the grail, and we martyred our prophets and we rewrote our tale. So now we must stand with our hearts in our hands. The forces of reason are ours to command. So set forth we must, though we crumble to dust, to unveil the terrors, to seek what is just. So we give it our all, though we stumble and fall, as we covet the gift, as we yearn to recall what the gods themselves must have kept. On the waves we are tossed, but no matter the cost, we must brave the storm. I think I've got something backwards here. Bear with me for a second. No, that's right. On the waves we are tossed, but no matter the cost, we must brave the storm to return what was lost, while the gods themselves must have slept. As we unlock the shutters and open the doors, as we solve every puzzle, we will find many more. If time is a loop and the future's the past, then the end's the beginning and the first is the last. If time is eternal and the cosmos is infinite, then our mission is clear to find where we fit in it. So if we keep asking how, then a long time from now, as we end our last quest, we will take our last bow. As we put on the crown, from the sky we'll look down at the dead and the sleeping. What we sought, we have found. So before it's too late, we will strive to create, because so long ago, when we accepted our fate, how the gods themselves must have wept. Now, I missed a paragraph in here somewhere, and I'm going to find it just because, here it is. This is about the middle of the poem, but I missed it, and it's my favorite, so I screwed it up. Bear with me. We seek and we find, and we learn and we grow, from the mysteries of night to the depths of the soul. From the secrets of the helix to the power of the sun, when we answer every question, there'll be nowhere left to run. If there's no beauty in truth, and no truth in faith, and no faith in love, then we fade like a wraith. Rearrange that in your brain. Thank you so much. It's my first time. Next time I won't screw it up.
let's join our voices together in hymn number 318, We Would Be One. I invite you to rise in body or spirit.
Well, hi again. This is only one sheet, so I should be able to handle it. This is a time for generosity. Unitarian Universalism is a grand vision of a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. That vision is embodied in a few large congregations, numerous mid-sized congregations, and many, many small congregations. No matter its size, every congregation depends on each of its members, each one of you. By your commitment of time, energy, and resources, help make that grand vision real. Individually and together, we are Unitarian Universalists, building a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. And now your contributions will be collected and gratefully received. Thank you.
I sprung on her, asking her if she would play some Ludovico Einaudi, who's one of my favorite composers, and she decided on Tuesday, and she mastered 3 of those pieces, which is amazing, isn't it? Okay, for the closing words. A beloved past teacher of mine described the path of spiritual growth as a spiral that is ever moving upwards and outwards as our spiritual awareness grows and expands. That visual has stuck with me over many decades. The topic of finding one's personal spiritual path and community is currently on the minds of many North Americans. Recently, the New York Times began publishing a series of articles that focus on how Americans who have left traditional Christian churches over the years are now seeking a way to fill that spiritual and community void. I found it intriguing while working on the service to learn that that topic of spiritual growth and community is currently resonating with so many people. For those of you who read the Times, you might find this series of articles enlightening and encouraging. For me, the process of delving into my own historical spiritual journey while preparing this talk was one of self-discovery. The process required considerable self-reflection, but resulted in beneficial realizations I had not anticipated when I first offered to speak on this topic. In closing, I invite those of you who found this service helpful in some way to consider reflecting on your own personal spiritual or moral journey and how it led you here to become a member of the fellowship. And if you dare, you might consider offering to share your journey with us at a future Sunday service. Now we will share a Playing for Change video as we extinguish the chalice. Many of you will recognize this joyful Doobie Brothers song from 1972, even though we don't hear it played often anymore. After the video ends, you are invited to join us for coffee and cookies. Listen to the music.
like a lazy flowing river, set on the gossamer to the sky.
And the crowd is growing